Good morning, YouTube. Today we are here at Alamo City Harley-Davidson here in the beautiful San Antonio, Texas. And today we're going to be running the 2018 Road King Special in Vivid Black. This bike in Vivid Black starts at $21,999, powered by the Milwaukee 8 107, putting down 111 foot-pounds of torque. It's got a 6-gallon fuel tank, a 27-inch seat height. You're rocking the 130 tire in the front, 180 in the rear. Thanks to these saddlebags here that open from the inside, you get 2.5 cubic feet of space, and the bike weighs in at around 820 pounds in running order. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and hop on this bike and take it for a ride. So setting the bike up, it definitely does feel 820 pounds. I mean, it's not terribly heavy. A lot of the weight is centered down low, but it definitely does feel like a heavy touring bike. Milwaukee 8 starts up smooth. As you can see in the mirrors, there is no longer terrible shaking going on. Your mirrors are actually usable. And it also has some very smooth gear shifts as well. So to tell you a little bit about myself, in case this is the first video that you're watching on the channel, my name is Justin, and I run the channel here on YouTube called Bike and Bird. I've been riding for pretty much my entire life. Anything from 1000cc sport bikes, dirt bikes, cruisers, you name it. I probably have ridden some sort of variation of it. And I also like to point out before every test ride that even though this test ride is being produced in association with Alamo City Harley-Davidson, it is in my contract that I am able to give my complete unbiased opinion, whether it be positive, negative, or indifferent. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start this test ride. Wow, so even at 820 pounds, this bike wants to get up and go. 111 foot-pounds of torque being produced from that Milwaukee 8 107, and you feel every single foot-pound. Right off the bat, I do notice that with the Road King Special not having a windshield for some reason, you definitely are getting quite a bit of wind. And also, I just want to give you a little heads up. We are going to be hopping on the interstate here in a second, but do not worry, we are not doing the entire interview on the interstate. That would be stupid. After a brief interstate ride, we're going to hop off onto some country back roads, and as well as run through some more suburban areas and some neighborhoods. So this bike has no issue getting up to speed whatsoever. Comes up to highway speed very easily. So now we're up to highway speeds and the wind has not gotten any better. I'm feeling a lot of wind on my the lower half of my torso. So beneath my chest, between my chest and like my belt line, I'm getting that's where I feel the brunt of the wind, which is weird. It's not something you usually feel on the interstate on some of these bikes, but that's definitely where the concentration is. As far as the overall ride on the highway though, it feels very good. It feels very planted. Your bike's not getting pushed around by the wind at all. I mean, of course, at 820 pounds, you really wouldn't expect that. And the torque is just there. I mean, it makes those passes extremely easy. I will say that other than the wind, the highway is a pleasurable experience. The handlebars feel good. Well, I'll talk more about that later, but they feel good as far as handling on the highway. The seat feels fantastic. Throttle response feels great. The floorboards are nice and comfortable. Oh yeah, the bike also does come equipped with cruise control. I'm not sure how much I'm going to be able to use it here, nor do I know how to use it. There it goes. All right, there we go. So, cruise control is engaged. We are locked at 68 miles an hour. Hand is completely off the throttle, which is super cool. To disengage, all you gotta do is tap the brakes or roll off the throttle, so push it forward, and it also disengages it as well. Very cool feature. It's one of those things that you don't really know that you want until you have it. All right, so coming down off the interstate here, doing a couple downshifts, very smooth. Milwaukee 8 is just such a smooth, comfortable motor. It does everything so well. I mean, just so smooth. I will say that the shifts are a little bit harder on this bike than I have felt on some of the other Milwaukee 8s. I don't know if that is just a coincidence or what have you, but it definitely is noticeable. Brakes on this thing are so good. Oh God, especially the fronts, man. You've got the dual disc up front, just tremendous stopping power. And those low speed turns are actually very nimble, very comfortable. So I will say that I'm still getting used to the heel toe shifter. I'm not a huge fan of it, just because if you want to use just the toe, you have to pretty much hang your foot like halfway off of the footboard to actually get it up underneath far enough to change the gears. But I feel like with more riding and stuff like that, you would just get used to that, or utilize the heel a little bit more. As we get into some back roads here, we'll go ahead and cycle through the dash and stuff here. It does have the kind of older style key lock here. It's got this flips open. That's how you can lock it and unlock it. Your standard mile per hour dash. Cycling through, you have a clock, gear indicator, odometer, trip A, trip B, and your range. On the handlebars, you have pretty much right turn signal, left turn signal, high beam, low beam, horn, hazard, start, and then your kill switch, and then your cycle button up here, as well as your cruise control controls on that side. So nothing fancy, typical Harley stuff. We're going about 40 miles an hour here, and at 40 this bike actually feels pretty nimble. Definitely flickable. You do feel that fatter front tire up front though, but I mean, you can still get this bike side to side, no problem. Let's take it into this turn here. Yeah, handles it pretty nice. I mean, granted, this is not anything crazy as far as turns go, but the bike definitely feels planted. And this bike just wants to get up and go, guys. Tons of power. Alright, so we're getting into a little bit bumpier portion of the road. This is kind of my rough road test section, and this bike is doing extremely well. I am extremely impressed with how well it's handling it. Definitely the best bike that I've taken through this by far. This is the first touring bike I'm taking through though, so just keep that in mind. But man, let me just go ahead and take a second to recognize how comfortable this seat is. Now, I'm known for bashing Harley's seats, and Harley's not known for making the best of seats, but I feel like on the touring bikes, they at least do okay. This is definitely the most comfortable seat that I've sat on so far in my test rides. This is the first touring bike, so it would make sense, but definitely a comfortable seat. I also had my fiance on this bike for a brief second before we start this video, and she said that the passenger seat was also extremely comfortable. Alright, so now we're kind of transitioning into more of like a back road highway. We're getting up to a little bit higher speeds. A railroad crossing. Oh, handled that very well. Even with the floorboards, still very easy to stand up to avoid obstacles. Alright, so this is the part of the ride where I like to talk about size. Now, I am 6'2", 235 pounds. I have a 32-inch inseam, so kind of short legs, very long arms, and this bike feels very comfortable. The only thing that I'm really feeling that doesn't feel right is the handlebars. Now, for a person a little bit smaller, a little bit shorter, or maybe even shorter arms, it might be a lot more comfortable, but for me, I feel a little bit hunched over. I feel like I'm kind of reaching down to grab the bars more comfortable. But I will say, I believe on every single test ride I've done on these bikes, I've complained about the bars. So keep that in mind. I'm kind of picky on my bars. I prefer something a little bit higher and a little bit flatter. So for me, my ideal bars would be about here. So as you can see, quite a bit different from what it comes stock, but that's completely personal preference. That's why you see handlebars in every size, shape, bend, reach back, you name it. But I do know, thanks to some inside knowledge and changing out bars on this bike with one of my buddies, is that there's quite a bit of slack in these lines and in these cables that you're able to put a much wider bar if you want, also a much taller bar if you want. You kind of have to reroute them and stuff like that, but the slack is there, so you don't have to replace wires, replace cables, things of that nature. So going down to the tank, this tank is a 6-gallon tank, one of the bigger tanks of the Harley line, and it definitely does not feel like it. My legs kind of look like they're spread out, but they're definitely not so spread out that it's uncomfortable. I mean, I still got plenty of room. And with a 6-gallon tank and this bike getting around 47 miles per gallon, we're looking at just under 300 miles on a tank, which is an awesome range. Alright, so we've been going for about 20 miles now and coming up into some stoplights. I always like to take this time to point out how cool these motors run. Now, if you've ridden an old 103, you know those bikes can get pretty damn hot, especially in your inner leg area. With the way that these motors are set in this bike, as well as them being partially liquid cooled, these bikes, you don't feel the heat off of them at all. I mean, you do, but it's not anywhere near the heat of the 103s. It's not anywhere near close enough to be burning you just by being close to it. So one gripe I do have about the Road King Special, I don't know how well you can see it in the camera, but it comes with the standard halogen headlight. It doesn't come with the LED or the Daymaker or anything like that, which I feel like for the Special, that should be something that's included, but it's not. One thing I really don't like about the touring bikes is the hydraulic clutch. Now, if you don't have any experience with the hydraulic clutch, basically it operates the clutch with hydraulics as opposed to your standard cable. Similar to how your brakes operate the brake pistons with brake fluid, this operates the clutch with hydraulic fluid. It has a totally different feel than a cable clutch. Now, I have heard that a lot of people like it. They feel like it's a lot smoother. I don't feel the smoothness. I mean, I do, but I don't think that it's smooth enough to justify the weird feeling. I feel like with a cable clutch, you get a lot better feedback in the lever. I feel like it's a lot more predictable. But that's going to be chalked up to one of those personal preferences. The Road King Special also does come standard with this crash bar you see up front. So not only is your bike somewhat protected by low speed drops and things like that, but you can also get the highway pegs and attach them on so you have your secondary foot position. So now let's talk about the 3 things that I would change on this bike. Now, this is more of just my personal list. This isn't the things that must be changed on every single bike purchased by anybody. This is just, if I were to purchase this bike today, what would be the first 3 things that I would change? Easy there, bud. So number 1 would have to be these handlebars. The more I ride it, the more uncomfortable I'm getting, just because, like I said, I'm so slouched over, I'm leaned forward. Not the most ideal, comfortable stance for me. Definitely would go something more around this area. Also, I like to point out, this bike does have ABS. If you've never ridden with ABS, it definitely is a weird feeling. Definitely takes some getting used to, but it's an excellent technology and has saved my butt a couple times. Number 2, I'm kind of having a hard time thinking of things I would change on this bike, so that should tell you something. Number 2 would probably be some highway pegs to get that secondary foot position. But like I said, on this bike, it would be extremely easy because it already comes with that crash bar. And then number 3, just because it's a touring bike, and with touring bike, you know, you want to take your lady friend along or your guy friend. It's 2018. I'm not going to judge. You can go ahead and throw a backrest on the back, since that does not come stock with the bike either. Put a little quick detach mounts and a backrest would be my number 3. Now, of course, with this bike being stock, I'd also want to put some exhaust on it because it's nothing special. No stock bike is going to be, because of all the rules and regulations. But overall, a very nice bike. So next I'm going to answer the 2 questions that I get all the time, and that is, would this be a good beginner's bike, and who is this bike for? So as far as a beginner's bike, I'm gonna have to say no-ish. I always put a little asterisk on that because for me, I feel like starter bikes can be anything depending on the person's size, age, maturity level, etc. So I feel like who is this bike for answers that question a little bit better. And for this bike in particular, I see this bike being a great choice for someone who definitely wants to put on a lot of miles, definitely wants to do some long trips. I feel like this bike would be kind of wasted just putting around town. And I also feel like it would be a great alternative for someone who either A, isn't experienced enough or strong enough to lift the full dressed baggers with the fairing and everything like that, or B, doesn't have a need for that. Say for example, if they don't want that fairing, they don't want the speakers, they don't want the infotainment system, this would also be a great option, because literally outside that fairing and the infotainment system, everything on this bike is exactly the same as a road glide or a street glide for about $5,000 less. Alright, so I'm going to hop back on the interstate real quick. I will check back in with you guys when we are at the dealership. Alright, so we're getting back to the dealership. I want a mulligan for my top 3 list. For some reason, I completely forgot, I guess because we were not on the interstate, but it would go handlebars, windshield and or fairing, and then backrest. That would be my real top 3. How I forgot about the windshield and fairing, I have no idea, but definitely needed for any extended highway riding. Alright guys, so overall, this bike does get the Bike and Bird seal of approval. $22,000, it's a great entry to the touring line. Now, between the Road King Special and the Road King Standard, it's really going to depend on appearance. It's a lot of black on the Specials. The Standards have a lot of chrome, and those are, I believe, a couple $1,000s less. So, depending on what style is your style, that would be your choice to make. Well guys, that's going to pretty much wrap it up. If you're local to the San Antonio area, come down to Alamo City Harley-Davidson, tell them that Bike and Bird sent you, and they will have a special surprise for you. Even if you don't buy a bike, they'll have something to give you. If you do buy a bike, please let them know that I sent you. It really does help me out. It helps them justify letting me take out these $22,000 bikes for test rides and stuff like that. So if you found this video helpful or informational in any way, please hit that like button. It does do a ton for the channel. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Turn those notifications on. I will be doing test rides of all of the 2019 models as soon as they come out, literally the day after, so you don't want to miss out on that. Other than that guys, I want to thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time.